Welcome to the Black Girl Tale podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Sheena Tubbs. Let's begin. Hey, and welcome back to the latest episode of Love Junkie. Okay, so this week we are going to get all into talking about learning how to choose the right people or following your instincts. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to name this episode yet, but that is what we are going to talk about. And I have 3 steps that I want to suggest for you to follow, to use as kind of a mini checklist to assess the new people who come into your life. Because what happens is, as I mentioned before, there's always a pattern, right? There's always things that we can look out for. And so I want you to be prepared to kind of avoid some of the pitfalls that happen when we trust and let in the wrong people. And the inspiration for this episode topic has come from lessons learned. And actually what I have learned about the lessons is that sometimes the best evidence that you have actually gotten the message that you need to is that you'll get multiple opportunities to follow through with the information that you've gathered to actually see, are you going to avoid this pitfall, or are you going to walk right into the same trap all over again? And so for me, when it comes to learning how to choose the right people, these are 3 themes that I've noticed come up often. And so I want to share them with you to help you move forward in the best way in all of your relationships as well. Okay, so get your pens ready. So the first thing that you want to look out for to make sure that you do not unwittingly get into relationship, friendship, business, any kind of connection with someone who is not good for you is to spot signs of being unavailable. And so signs that someone is unavailable is things like maybe they are unreliable, that they can be dishonest, that they have outside commitments that stops them from being as committed to you, problems in communication, that they don't know how to communicate, stuff like that. The reason why we move forward with people who are unavailable sometimes is some of us try to give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to rely on the human factor. We try to kind of just say, well, maybe they had a bad day, and we will look over big glaring red flags when they are very obvious and there for a reason. And so are we perfect? No, there's no one who is perfect. Everybody is entitled, and you can expect for people to have poor moments, and you might be the one who catches them at a poor moment. However, how someone bounces back from that, their actions after that negative encounter is really key. Do they actually make up for it versus just apologize for it, but they still keep doing the same thing? Is there a lack of accountability? And so anytime we have people in our lives that show us via their actions that they are not going to show up the way that we need them to, then it is up to us to take that information and go with it, right? So Maya Angelou's quote, when people show you who they are, then we need to believe them. Okay. So you got that down. Tip number 2 that will help us make sure that we are choosing the right people and following our instincts are noticing if the person has traits of someone or something that you don't like or does not fit for you. Now, this is really interesting because this doesn't necessarily have to mean that the person is unavailable. It just means that there's just something about the connection that kind of grits you the wrong way, that just doesn't fit, that if you're not careful, you will try to look over because, again, you're used to trying to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, well, then maybe it's just me, or doubt yourself. But y'all, you have an internal compass and an intuition that is there for a reason. You can't deny it and mute it, because the more that you do that, the worse that it will be, the more that it will become difficult for you to get in touch with that inner knowing that's telling you this person is not their energy is off, or even if they have a good energy, maybe just a working relationship between the two of you would not work out and be productive. And that doesn't mean that this is a bad person or anything. It's just that you are protecting and responding and being attentive to your inner guide, your inner child, your inner knowing, the spirit, whatever you call that conscious voice. So what are some examples? So some examples that kind of overlap with being unavailable is someone who might you might notice is kind of rude, or people who are kind of harsh. And so this could be the person that you're like, wow, like they just say whatever they want to say without a filter. And at first, depending on their delivery and depending on their personality, it can come off as like really funny and really charismatic. But the thing about that is how others treat other people is how they're going to end up treating you. And so if the way that someone talks and communicates with other people, just in general, or when they're frustrated or when they're upset, as long as you're in relationship with someone, there is a possibility, a very strong possibility, that you may have the same kind of exchange with that person. And so if that fits for you, the way that that person communicates and talks, and the standards that they have for other people, if you feel like it's fair, then go forward. But if you're watching them and you see that they kind of blame other people a lot, or they tend to be very judgmental, or have a short fuse, or ask people to do things that they're not willing to do, just know that that's not a one-time occurrence. That is part of their disposition and their perspective. And it would be wise for you to pay attention to that. And y'all, I promise you, being in this field where I help people for a living, where I coach and do therapy for a living, part of the gift of this work is not only helping other people change their lives, but you are constantly learning these lessons yourself. If you are good at what you do, you have to remain open to how you can apply this, and also ways that you kind of need to get checked yourself. And so I say that because this one is very prevalent in my life as well. The way that this looks like for me, so as a reminder, this one that I'm talking about is people who have traits of something that you don't like, or things that you feel like you have to keep an eye out on. As I've been expanding Black Girls Heal, I've had to kind of start to rely on other people, make different contacts, and sometimes that includes hiring people. And so they could be people who are just really great, and I really love and respect a lot of things that they do. But there have been a couple times that I've had kind of a red flag when I have watched their disposition, or I watched just kind of their responses, and I was like, well, maybe it was just me, right? All the stuff that I'm kind of telling you right now, or, I'm a therapist by trade, so I'm trained to be kind of neutral and give people the benefit of the doubt. But I found myself making excuses for times that it would take a while for them to respond to emails. So maybe they're busy just like me. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond to emails and to requests, and it gets buried beneath the email or in my inbox. So maybe it's just one of those times, or maybe they didn't answer the question that I asked them about this project because they were just really skimming it, and they just were in a rush. And so making all of these compromises and excuses for people that I shouldn't. And I shouldn't do that, because people are responsible for their own actions. Y'all, if you are in relationships with people and you find yourself constantly making excuses for the things that they do and the things that they don't do, you are doing too much, and you are parenting them. Even if you never come back and say, well, this is what I think you should do, you trying to change what is the actual facts and reality shows an unhealthy kind of dynamic between the two of you, where you are willing to sacrifice yourself and move forward in a relationship where there are obvious red flags, versus saying, okay, this person is showing me who they are and some of their capabilities. And again, that doesn't mean that you assign that they are a bad person or a good person. It's just that you recognize, okay, these are some of their strengths and these are some of their growth points. And you make a decision on whether or not that works for you. You cannot change how someone presents. And so what I would find, the way that this issue would present for me, is that I would find myself trying to coach people and tell them what they should do to avoid me being triggered later on. So if I was in a relationship who I found with someone who I found to be kind of harsh or aggressive, I would kind of tell them before anything happened, while everything was good, hey, I'm kind of sensitive, or I don't like jokes like that, or just so you know, this is how I feel about that. And I wasn't saying it in a way to set a boundary. I was saying it in a way to please ask them to treat me differently than they treat other people, which in itself is okay. Like, that's actually really good communication. But the fact that I was asking them to change who they are and how they present versus me putting things in place to help me just honor and respect that this is this person's disposition. And because this is their disposition, if I want to be in relationship with them, I have to enter in accepting them for who they are. It is unfair for me to get into any kind of friendship, business, partnership, romantic relationship with anyone, expecting them to change for me versus them changing because they want to change. When I do that, I set us up for conflict. I set me up for disappointment, and it's unfair. So when it comes to someone who might have a harsh or aggressive personality that I know just doesn't necessarily fit with me in the way that I am, I'm not someone who is ever going to be able to play the dozens. That has not ever been my gifting. I'll watch everybody else capping each other, but I'm not even going to try to jump in with that, right? And so if I know someone who has that times 10, I'm going to love them and honor them and know that about them, and then make adjustments on my end around the fact. I'm not going to say, hey, can you please, whenever we talk later, kind of be nicer? That's not their responsibility. Now, if they want to be my friend, I can communicate, hey, yeah, when you joke like that, it just makes me uncomfortable. And if they decide to change, then great. And if not, I've already put things in place that honors our relationship. Let me know if that makes sense. If it, you can join me in our Facebook group, our Black Girls Heal Facebook group. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to blackgirlsheal.org/group and ask me follow-up questions about this episode, or under our latest post on Instagram that talks about this episode as well. So there's someone in your life that you need to let go of, but you're too afraid that once you will, he or she will change. You're fearful they'll find someone else and you'll be stuck alone, or that they'll be happy without you. And so in Learn to Thrive, my signature course, I help you overcome this fear that keeps you stuck so that you can actually move forward, either by cutting ties or creating boundaries in this relationship. You can sign up for the waitlist at learntothrivecourse.com or click the link in the show notes to know when the doors reopen. Stop sacrificing your happiness and start speaking up for what you want and the love that you deserve. So yeah, that's for that one. That's the longest one because I've been going through it. Not going through it. I don't want y'all to be worried about me. That's a lesson that I've had to relearn recently, a lot quicker than I would have in the past. And again, y'all, just I guess to kind of share a little bit, this isn't just for romantic relationships. This is also for friendships. This is for business relationships. A lot of us are making big moves and transitions in our lives. And it's really important that we invest in people who we believe and that we can trust from the onset that will return the investment and be mutual, however that investment looks. Okay, and so number 3, the third thing for you to look out for to make sure that you are choosing the right people is making sure that whenever you ask for what you need, that it doesn't get dismissed or apologized for, but not accepted. So notice that I said that the 2 inappropriate responses are both to be dismissed, and also if they apologize, but the apology does not involve a change of action. Some of us stay in relationships with people because they are so good at apologizing and it seems really sincere. And also, we have our own fear of abandonment and our fear of letting go. So we stay and we hope that things will actually change. But look, if someone is constantly apologizing and they're like doing this overture of kindness, but when it comes down to it, they're still unavailable, there is still dishonesty, there is still questions, then this is not the right partnership for you. Or if it is the right partnership, then you need to change your expectations. So going back to number 2, you notice that this is who this person is. You cannot change him or her, right? So if someone struggles with constantly being on time and flaking out and not being there, you need to decide, is this relationship worth it? And me saying that is completely neutral. For some of you, it could be that this is a really great person in my life. This is a really great friend. But I just know that when I have social events, this person is really introverted. They're not going to show up, or they're going to show up really late because of their own social anxiety or something like that. Or that exact same situation, I know that when I invite my friends in place, they're not going to show up because of their social anxiety. But what I need from a friend right now is someone I could depend on for companionship. And if I can't depend on them to be a companion because they're dealing with their own stuff, then I love them and I honor them enough to let them go. So every decision you make is neutral. Nothing is good or bad, but as long as you are actively choosing it, that is what makes it the right decision. In our lives, what happens is that we spend so much time being compelled and being guilted and compromising and just kind of hoping that things will work out, or shutting it down and say, well, I don't care, and then trying to do things ourselves and, going into isolation and not ever communicating what we need to people. And these are all dysfunctional things that just keep us in the same cycle. And so it's important that we break the cycles by acting on what we see, on the red flags, figuring out what we want, communicating it, and then moving forward. Okay? So that is this week's episode about 3 ways to choose the right people. I think I just figured out my podcast episode title. Let me know if this has been helpful for you. Again, you can drop a line under this post in our Instagram at blackgirlsheal_. Or you can come and tell me what you think about it in our Facebook group at blackgirlsheal.org/group. You can also search via Facebook yourself, but, that's just a shortcut. And then if you like this podcast, please make sure you are rating it and reviewing it, especially on iTunes, so that other people can find it. And that is it for now. I will see you next week. Bye.